Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of the Dirty D.O podcast. Today's guest is a personal friend of mine, and many of you out there as well. When trying to decide who would be perfect to kick off this D.O., this man continually came to mind. He has a story that is captivating from his younger years with run-ins with the alcohol scene to his time as a businessman and public service and elected official, and even run-ins with the law as of late. I am certain you will find my first guest entertaining just as I do. So sit back and relax as we dive into the life and times of the Dirty D.O.'s very first guest, Mr. Kyle Rohweder. Kyle, welcome to the Dirty D.O. You are the very first podcast guest. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great to be able to pop some cherries.
All right, good deal. First and foremost, I would like to promote Kyle is a local business owner here in town. He owns Glory Days Barbershop. If you have not been in, you are missing out. The company is always unique. The cuts are pretty good, I will say above average. No, they're very good. The guests that come in and out, it's a pretty good time. So if there's anything you want to add to that.
I was just about to say that we have a rotating door of characters, and right. that's for sure.
Right. So just to paint a picture of the man I'm sitting across from right now, those of you who do not know Kyle, and I mean this with love, but if the adult section at Walmart still had a husky, he'd be shopping there, and he would be doing it with pride. The man is covered in tattoos, which I know some people look at that as a bad thing, which it is absolutely not. But he is a very genuine, honest, down-to-earth, at the same time a little bit radical person that I feel would just be a great first guest for the Dirty D.O. So, hopefully that gives you a visual. If not, you can just check out the pictures I have posted of him.
I do also happen to be wearing a pair of Zubaz and a leopard print sweater that does not belong to a female. It is my own because on a regular basis I'm just channeling Ferris Bueller. So
that is true. It's a very nice leopard print sweater. So just a little bit, I think Kyle and I crossed paths, if I remember right, roughly, I'm going to say 14, 15 years ago, ballpark it. It was very random. I saw a photo shoot from his barbershop that our friend Taylor Lufkin did, and I actually thought Taylor was like in the big city getting his hair cut. So I reached out and found out it was right up the road. So I started going in, and I've been going in ever since. I think that's about the time frame.
Yeah,
if you remember, right?
Absolutely. And it was a match made in heaven. Chad had me at hello.
That's right. I would often take my son Caleb in when he was little, and he loved going in because you had all the monster magazines, all the monster memorabilia around for the horror films, and Caleb would search through them. I also give Kyle credit that this would be the very first place, to my knowledge, that my son, at too young of an age, saw his first nudie magazine.
That is correct, because Chad's child was a giant as a child. So the rule is you're not able to look at the nudie magazines until you're tall enough to reach them in the bathroom. And Cabe's was about 8.
Yes, he. I don't know what he thought of that. He may have liked the monsters more, but I'm guessing that has changed. Over the years, we've went on a few adventures. We went to a little town called Goofy Ridge. I don't know if anybody knows Goofy Ridge, but if you haven't been there, it is exactly the way it sounds. I think we road tripped down there. I think a mutual friend of ours and a friend of yours was there. We found this little tavern, if you will, right?
Yeah, we do what Chad and I do together, and what we've been doing for years is access the jukebox, and we blow it up with outlaw country and 90s hip hop.
Yeah, so we walked in, and if you're in a town like Goofy Ridge and you're an outsider walking into a little tavern, the record screeches, everybody turns and looks. So we had to throw up a signal, and we just took over the jukebox, and we made friends with toothless people. Some people that had half their teeth. Yeah. A nice lady informed me that I don't look like Emilio Estevez. I look like the guy from Rascal Flatts. But if that guy went to like a Russian prison. Yeah. I don't know if that place still stands. It might be. I knew they were advertising like a frog leg fry.
Yeah, the frog leg fry is classic.
We intended to go back, but we never made it. Kyle has joined Caleb in underwear swim parties at my old house. Caleb got down to his underwear, and Kyle didn't want him to feel left out, so he just stripped down and cannonballed right in.
There's very little shame in the fact that I produce a pretty substantial wave.
Yeah. One of probably the most awkward yet funny things, and I know you don't know what I'm going to say, but you'll remember it when I say it, is we went to an Eric Church concert in the Quad Cities, and it was between the opening act and Eric Church, and we went out to go to the bathroom. Of course, you walk in, and every urinal's taken. Well, when it's Kyle's turn to go up to the bathroom, the mark of the Quad Cities or whatever it's called has, I don't know how many urinals, a lot. Kyle just walked up, looked around, pulled his pants down to his ankles, and stood there like a kindergartner peeing at the urinal and just smiled at everybody who was looking at him.
Damn straight.
So there is no shame in his game. I was uncomfortable. Of course, I couldn't stop looking at what he was doing, but I didn't know if, but I don't think everybody else could either.
I don't think they could either, and it's because I have like a pretty tight ass for like a full-figured gentleman.
That's right. Let's see what else. We've crashed a karaoke bar in Bartonville one night.
Yep, absolutely.
I walked up the mic and dropped some hardcore rap on the place, and people didn't know what to think, but it ended up being a hit.
People don't usually suspect this by taking a glimpse at me, but my go-to is always Toby Keith's "Should Have Been a Cowboy."
That's good. Good stuff. We've taken a tattoo road trip to Springfield, where I was put in the most misery of my life. We've still yet to go back and finish it, and I'm fine with that. My wife still encourages me to do so, but I don't. I think I'm getting too old for the ribs to be stabbed over and over. But not the final thing, but one of the latest things is, let's see, 2 summers ago now. Dang. 1.5 years ago, sorry. My dad passed away, and we showed up to the graveside service. Kyle's a Freemason. My dad was a Freemason, and Kyle was there with the Masons performing the service. And I can't remember if I was in that morning for a haircut or the day before, but he didn't tell me, so it was just kind of, it was a nice surprise. But that's just the kind of guy Kyle is. He's going to go above and beyond for those that mean something to him. So it was very appreciated.
I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
So let's see. Kyle, get into your personal life. You have some children. How old are your kids now?
Man. I have a 12-year-old boy who is currently attending Catholic school through Decatur Catholic. And I'll preface this by saying that my son outed himself before school started this year as an atheist going to Catholic school. So prior to school starting, he had to attend Mass for the first time, and his mother and I are both Catholics, but haven't, raised the kid in the church for various reasons. And he tells me that right after Mass starts, he excuses himself to go to the bathroom to go play Clash of Clans for a little bit on his phone. So he faked a stomach ache to go do that, and he comes back out 20 minutes later, and the priest is in on his spiel, and the boy said, "Dad, you'll be really, really surprised that Mass wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. There was just enough of God's smiting to make things interesting." So that kid's fucked up, and my darling angel little girl Monroe is 8 years old now.
8 now.
She is 8 now.
If I had to guess, I'd have said like 4.
Yeah, it's
time.
Time goes absolutely.
It goes crazy. So Kyle is you can probably tell by looking. Kyle was big or still kind of big into the punk rock scene, especially growing up. Which is odd to me because I've never been in the punk rock scene. I don't get it, but I don't have to get it. I can respect different people's like taste, and it's all an art form. But I guess I know you're a big advocate for the straight edge lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a degenerate little skateboarding kid in the 90s who hung out with a lot of kids that were a few years older. So when it came time for, your average teenager to start experimenting with drugs and alcohol, I was like 10, 11, 12 experimenting with drugs and alcohol. So I got myself in a little trouble, kind of hurt myself a little bit, messing around with stuff I shouldn't have. My family intervened, and a family member who gave me my first skateboard, got me into racing BMX, has been my hero my entire life, dropped some knowledge on me and was like, listen, man, you know that I don't drink. You know that I don't mess around with drugs. Like, never have, never will. And this is why. And I've been stone sober since that day.
That's good. For those that don't know, the straight edge lifestyle, it's, correct me if I'm wrong, you abstain from alcohol, tobacco, recreational drugs.
Yep, that's
anything of the sort. Some even, I believe, avoid caffeine and all that, but I don't know if you're that,
Yeah, no, coffee, I would never want to put anything in my body to make it go slower, so.
Now I could be making this whole memory up, but did you tell me one time these older kids you're around, did they get you, weren't you pretty, at least one instance, almost to the point of, like, not, I won't say dead, but pretty jacked up. I got good and messed up one summer. I learned, this is going to sound funny from like a 40-year-old dude who doesn't drink or do drugs, but I learned how to do drugs because of Dare. Yeah, that is kind of strange.
And they taught me how to get high on inhalants and the things that you mix that make you feel kind of funny, and not like funny in the way when you're sitting in church and you get like an awkward boner while they're like talking about Jesus, like not that kind of funny. Yeah. That's a different kind of funny. That's Catholic guilt that makes you think about that kind of funny. But it was pretty bad, and I wasn't really responsive, and my lifelong best friend found me kind of struggling and had to slap me around a little bit, dump some water on me to get me to come to, and that was pretty gnarly. That was I bet. That was like the summer between 7th and 8th grade, something like that.
So a lot of people, I think, if they say could sit here and say I was kind of messed up, had a problem at 12, 13, they might be embarrassed, but I think you embrace it.
Oh yeah, dude.
And it's probably in the long run better you found it then than as an adult, like driving vehicles out in the public. Like,
yeah, well, and there's a thing that, especially being a father and being like in a position of influence in the lives of some people, some younger people, that I'm a good example, I think, of the trouble that you can find on accident, but I'm also an example of what happens when you kind of, get your shit together young enough and develop a kind of sense of what you want your future to look like. And, not that there aren't areas of my life still that could use some improvement or whatever.
Right.
But I've also like built a really amazing life for myself, you know, with the help of the people around me that I love and love me in return. And I think that's like a positive thing to take away from it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So I guess to me, like when I think of the punk scene, you see like videos, you know, I'm talking like the basement concerts where people are mosh pitting, like throwing each other around, breaking stuff. You would think that being a straight edge in that environment would make it difficult, but are a lot of those guys more than you think along the same straight edge path? Yeah,
I'd say through the punk and larger, you know, subcultures or subsects of punk, I'd say probably 30% of the people that you would see involved in that live a similar lifestyle to myself. And, you know, some people to varying degrees. You know, there's a lot of concern for animal welfare. So you get a lot of vegetarians and vegans, you know, as well. But yeah, it's there are a lot more of us than one thinks.
Right. So yeah, I've always thought that was interesting. Like I said, I've never been into that music or that scene, but it's interesting. You know, it's kind of like, it's something I know nothing about, so it kind of sucks you in. I'm not saying I'd want to go to a basement concert because I'd probably get the hell beat out of me, but you know.
Oh, but there's this thing about that where, you know, fundamentally, you know, I come from, you know, a rural area. And in my family, there are as many cars up on cinder blocks in our yards as there are master's degrees. So there's kind of a duality to that. But I'm a big Steve Earle fan, and you know, there are pictures of me going back to 20 years ago, playing in punk rock bands, playing in basements, where people are abusing each other. Doing some purely reckless things while wearing a sleeveless Steve Earle t-shirt and wearing cowboy boots.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's another thing about Kyle, you know, all this punk rock scene, but he can be found in bib overalls. He's got a small or maybe large collection of cowboy boots.
I have a substantial collection of cowboy boots.
It's from one end of the spectrum to the other, which I can appreciate. Now you still do play music, right?
I do.
Is it punk music still? Is it?
At this point in my life, I play a lot of kind of mellow 90s alt rock kind of influenced stuff. Things that have more in common with the Goo Goo Dolls than they do like SSD Control, right, or some, you know, obscure, you know, Western Massachusetts punk band from 1984 or whatever. So I still playing with a group of dads right now. We practice in Wilton, Iowa. We just practiced yesterday.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I've always, like I've told you, like an 80s, 90s just throwback country cover band.
Someday we'll do it.
Just maybe even with the mullets. Not like today's mullets, like the true
traditional, yes.
Cyrus, stand along a fence post, you know, or fence line for your picture.
My uncle proudly sported like the traditional mullet until well into the year 2000. And it was the most unironic thing ever. And I think there are days he sees a picture of a younger self and regrets ever cutting that thing off.
Yeah.
It was triumphant.
So, like I said, Kyle is a barber by profession. That is what his main skill is. But growing up, it was not always. You weren't always going to be a barber, right? You were gonna.
No, I went to college to be a teacher. I came home from my first day of 7th grade and said, "Mom, I want to teach high school English." I've always had a passion for language and writing in particular. So I went to college to do that. But I dropped out of college my senior year. I was playing in a pretty serious punk band. I put out a couple records, like toured nonstop pretty much for like 2 years or so, and gave that a big push. And in the midst of that, I just decided, after doing some classroom observation, that I didn't want to be a teacher anymore. Teaching a bunch of 15-year-olds about Catcher in the Rye just became very unappealing.
Yeah, I can see that.
Even though at 15, I thought there was nothing better than sitting in a classroom reading Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, obviously I am a teacher. I enjoy being a teacher, but at the same time, if I'm being honest, if I could go back, I would not be a teacher. And that could be with today's world and how it is, and it's going, not like you'd want it to go. So what led you to barber school?
Oh man. So the first time, kind of like Caleb, the first time I ever got my hands on a nudie magazine was at Swanson's Barbershop when I was even younger than Caleb. There was this understanding that I would not tell my mom what I saw, and I just thought that was really cool. Then when I was in college, I started getting my hair cut downtown in Galesburg. I was working at a record store and at a hardware store, and going to school. And I just stumbled into this place because a coworker's dad owned it, and the guy I worked with I thought was real sweet and always had a great haircut. And being a guy that loves music and film and whatnot, I've always worn pretty much the same haircut most of my life, like a traditional men's haircut. And I like a lot of like late 50s, like rockabilly, kind of stuff, and always gravitated towards, some of that stylistically. And a good haircut also got you laid. So
that's true.
So hanging out at Rich's Barbershop, introduced me to a bunch of cool older guys who sat around and watched Cubs games, read Playboys, never watched Fox News. That was always a great thing about that place. And we could talk music. We could talk God, we could talk, all the things that, normally people shy away from, we could get into there and have open and honest discussions, and everybody was still friendly with one another. People didn't fight.
Right.
So I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
Absolutely.
And since I, had just dropped out of Western Illinois and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I figured, why not make a place like that of my own?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I would go to Joe Little's barbershop in Knoxville. It was just he had football helmet wallpaper. Everybody knew him. And I've always thought, like, that would be like being a barber, like, never ending conversation, different walks of life coming in, but at the same time, the same walks of life. But a buddy of mine who I grew up with purchased that barbershop, and he's had it for a while, but now he's in barber school and he's going to open it back up. So I envy him, because it's like, dude, you're doing, like, he thought the same thing. Like, I've always thought it'd be cool to be a barber. So, like, I'm going to be a barber. So it's just funny to see, like, my childhood barber opening back up by somebody I grew up with.
Yeah.
So, like,
it's the coolest thing in the world. And I can tell you from the perspective of a creative, you never run out of stories to write about.
Right.
I've done some wild things in my life, and some of my friends have done even crazier shit than I could ever even imagine. And I'm not a snitch, so most of those stories I will keep to myself. But a time will come when some of those people are dead and gone that I'm able, as their friend and as a writer, am able to share some of those stories, and without them being incriminating. So in my preview for everybody, I mentioned, maybe against you wanting me to mention it, that even later in life you've had some adventurous run-ins with the law. And I remember, and I mean, I don't maybe not know all of them, but there was one. I want to say, were you like Texarkana area? Yeah.
Pulled over?
Oh yeah. I got mouthy with that cop, and I told him that's why I own guns, is to protect myself from fascists. Yeah, that got me in a little trouble.
That didn't go well, did it?
No, that didn't.
But
Didn't.
I guess nothing too bad came from it because you ever have to go back down there?
I never had to go back. I had to hire an attorney to like represent me from a distance, and it cost me a little money. Right. But it could have been worse. I just had to like sell a guitar when I got home or something like that to help finance that.
And then recently you've had a little, some young love go sour that led to
someone getting punched in the face. Yeah.
Some of your punk days came back out.
Yeah. I don't, there are certain things that I tolerate very, very much. Difference in opinions never bothers me. You know, the way that people view the world differently than me doesn't affect how I feel about them as individuals. Those kinds of things. But there are a few raw nerves, and when you hit that the wrong way, sometimes you don't get the reaction that you want. Sometimes you get something that's a little rough, you know.
Right.
And I lift weights, and even though I'm kind of fat, I bench press a lot of weight for a relatively small guy. So apparently, I hit like a freight train.
Yeah. Not a bad problem to have.
Not a bad problem.
No.
I just
legally it might be.
Yeah.
Is all that in the past cleared up? Or
all of that's in the past, all cleared up.
That's good.
With some good help and some good behavior and some good counseling.
Yeah, that's good. As we sit here and talk, Kyle has a very expansive record collection. I don't know how many records I'm looking at there. You have any idea what I'm looking at there?
There's probably 1,200 records in this room, maybe up to 2,000 records up in this room.
How many do you still have in the shop too?
I still got a bunch at the shop, and I've got a bunch of crates of like 12-inch singles in my basement.
Yeah. So if you're ever in the market for records, Kyle's your guy. He can either steer you, or he's probably got it.
I probably
has multiple of it.
There is a good possibility, yeah. Funny you mention that, because that's something that I've done basically my entire life is collect, and my shop and my house are full of cool, you know, antiques and retro items, anything from, you know, toys to records to musical instruments, you know, all kinds of rad rock and roll memorabilia, movie memorabilia. Looking over my shoulder, there's like my collection of antique Ouija boards up on my wall, you know, original movie posters everywhere.
I do believe, I can't remember, what the comic book was you gave Caleb when he was little. I don't know.
Oh man, it was a
werewolf. I don't know.
I think it was an old Tales from the Crypt.
That might be
comic book.
I believe, I could be wrong, it's still on his shelf in his room, like in a frame. He still has it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, he used to love going in there and looking at all the magazines with the horror movie characters and the monsters. Like, he loved it. He wouldn't be worth a crap getting his hair cut, if you remember that.
He did not like to
sit 12.
Yeah. Then it just finally clicked a little late. He was a late bloomer on the sitting well thing.
Yeah. I know. Let's see. Now that's hopeful. Well, it's not. I mean, this week's not a good time to say it, but the weather's hopefully going to start getting better, which means more music trivias. We haven't done those for a while.
No.
I don't think since we got kicked out of, or I guess we didn't get kicked out of one. Did we get kicked out of that one?
We got disqualified, and
gave a correct answer.
Yeah. Because it was Luda.
Yeah. It's Luda.
I'm not going to say. Yeah, that's it. Then we won.
Yeah, and then we got our title stripped, and
what was that? Was that like 2 years ago when we like won? And some woman on the way out said, "Just look at you. Obviously you cheated." Like, fuck you.
That was I don't know. I lose track of time, but for the record, we did win. We gracefully
we won by 1 point.
handed over our title. Well, we didn't have to hand it over. It was ripped out of our cold dead hands.
Yeah, true.
But whatever. We haven't been back to that one since.
You know, that time we won though. Do you remember what song it was that got us the 1 point ahead?
No, I just remember the one we got in trouble for.
Dude, Weird Al. It was Amish paradise, and everybody was like, Coolio! And I just like looked at the gang, and I was like, listen, hear me out.
Right.
This is Weird Al. This is Amish paradise here.
Yeah, I remember now.
Turns out that was it. 2 points, bam.
Yeah.
And somebody had the audacity to suggest that we cheated. Nah, bitch. It just means somebody owned Bad Hair Day by Weird Al Yankovic.
That's right. I bet you I could still sing most of that song, some of his songs. So when you're not cutting hair or playing music, what else you got going on? What's your, you know what I mean? What's your go-to hobbies?
Oh man, that's a good question. Still a collector. The sunroom in the front of my house is taken over with Halloween decorations, like vintage Halloween stuff. So I've been working hard on having a room in my house dedicated specifically to Halloween. I do have a gigantic jack-o'-lantern tattooed on my stomach. Yep. So really the true Pumpkin King, so it makes sense to have those things. And I spend a lot of time these days hanging out with my dog and with my girlfriend and her adorable dog, Violet, who has one eye and a little puffer belly that I rub all the time.
Single shot rifle?
No,
and
God, that's what she's gonna be.
One-eyed dog, yeah.
God bless.
And it's got to be on a Saturday night.
Yep, absolutely.
You can drive to Louisiana if you want.
Yep.
Nobody will get that.
A few of us. Yeah, we're nerds.
That's all right.
But yeah, these days,
what do you foresee life after barbering? Or are you going to barber till you die?
That's a good question. I just recently lost my longest resident cohort, and it's really disheartening. My shop has been cut in half a couple times now, which are some of the risks you run into when you run a small business as you get turnover. And I always thought that, because the way I was raised, that when you invest your time and your money and your energy into people, and you make sacrifices to try to help provide for those people and share with those people, that they'll stick around. But it turns out they don't. So I'm once again in kind of a rough situation there. And I've been giving it a whole lot of thought as to, what to do about that situation. And I'm not sure how sustainable, this business model will be. So, I can't say that there are any guarantees that things are going to go one way or another, but there's a chance that I close at some point. Yeah. Maybe sooner than later, but
well, in the meantime, for those of you out there that are looking for haircuts and good company in a unique setting, you're at the corner of Cherry and Simmons.
That's right.
Right, just two doors up from Duffy's, one door up from Duffy's, right across from Coney Island.
Yeah.
So if you're in there, or if you're not in there, if you need a place to go, stop in there. Say, hey, I heard about you on the Dirty D.O. You'll get treated well.
Absolutely.
Not just because you heard about it here, but you'll get treated well either way.
Also, that door is open, and I always encourage people, even if you're not getting a haircut, come in and hang out. If you not trying to put this out there too far into the universe, but I've been told that if you go into Duffy's and you order a beer and you say, hey, I'm waiting over at Kyle's, that they'll let you smuggle a PBR out the door as long as you're going to the barber shop. So you can even drink a beer and hang out and listen to Randy Bryan and me light people up, because it's a good time.
Yeah, so my personal take on life at the shop and Kyle is, you walk in the shop, like he just said, a lot of people go in there not even for haircuts. They stop in to socialize, whether it's 5 minutes, pop in, whether it's 2 hours. All walks of life It doesn't matter. I mean, you got people in there you wish weren't in there, but they're respected. You're always going to hear an honest opinion, at least from you, anyways.
True.
Whether it be politics gets brought up, which is typically not a good thing, as we know, to bring up. Religious stuff gets brought up. Like, he's going to be honest with you. If you bring your littles in for the first time, they might hear some language and some things, but it's not maliciously. It's just life. But the one thing about the shop is all these differences of opinions in there, everybody's respected. Like, I feel you show, even if you're getting hostile a little, set somebody straight, you don't mean it with harm. So I think everybody knows that. And that's why some of our mutual friends who see things from the opposite side, as we typically do, like, they still come in. They still love it. They still look forward to it.
Yeah, because there's this concept that I was raised to have, and Chad has the same thing, which is one of the reasons we've been so close for so many years. It's that we choose our company by what's in their heart, and not always what comes out of their mouth. And any of the leanings that we maybe have as far as our political or social opinions or concerns are, those things don't matter to us any more than anything else in the world that separates people, because we ultimately just care about our friends and we want to be there for our friends, whether we agree with them about stupid little things or not. Mm-hmm. That's it.
In the whole scheme of what usually the big argument comes out is, there ain't nothing any of us can do about it.
Exactly.
But that's the main argument. Just to touch real quick, any thoughts on back into being an elected official later in life, or ship sailed?
Man,
so you were what? You were elected on the county board.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You served on
the Knox County 708 Mental Health Board. I spent 6 years on the Mental Health Board, and I spent 5 years on Knox County Board. I was appointed to a vacancy, and then did another full term. Every so often, I'll have people from the community approach me about running for city council. That tends to be the thing that's brought up the most often. But honestly, I have found myself to be much more effective showing up to city council meetings and calling conservative members of the council gay in a bunch of creative ways. That's to me is more fun and creative and impactful than sitting on a council myself. Did you hear about that?
About what?
Like Pride Month last year, I wrote this like very poignant thing about flying the Pride flag in the month of June and why that was really important. And there were members of Galesburg City Council who were like vehemently anti-Pride due to their, quote unquote religious reasons or whatever, which are stupid. They're Catholics. I'm a Catholic too, and I'm a socialist, for Christ's sake. Right. So these people just choose to be dickheads. So I wrote this like very nice thing to present during public comment about how gay culture is part of American culture and American history, and how priests, wear these like fancy robes, and about how J. Edgar Hoover, was a transvestite, and how like the Stonewall riots in the 60s, where like a bunch of like dudes in dresses beat up a bunch of cops, is fucking awesome, because that's what it means to be a patriot. Right. And I then listed off like 40 things that aren't related to being a homosexual that we deem to be gay. And most of these were directed at one particular city council member who is a real estate agent. And
I just kept ripping on him. And when it was done, I had received a standing ovation from like 70% of the people in the city council chambers, including members of the clergy and a good friend of mine who is a beautiful, wonderful trans woman. And I knew that I did well, you know, for the alphabet community by calling in a bunch of creative ways.
Did you get an invite back to the next meeting because they missed you?
No, of course not. But you know what? Fuck them.
I didn't figure so. Yeah. So like I said, Kyle Rohweder, over the years has become a very good friend of mine, level-headed. We've had stupid talks. We've had serious talks in the chair. We've had just stopping in. If you're out and about for a cut or you just want a change of scenery and some conversation, stop in to Glory Days Barbershop on the corner of Cherry and the northwest corner of Cherry and Simmons.
Yeah.
Right across from Coney Island. You can get you a hot dog while you're there. But I appreciate you taking the time to, one, figure out the microphone situation that only took about an hour and 10 minutes. Hopefully it worked. We did all this thing, and we'll have to do it again at some point. But I appreciate you sitting down. This is a great first episode. I'm sure you'll be on another episode in the future. But I appreciate you, your time, our friendship, and everything that we've gone through and will go through from here on out.
You know, as always, spending time with you is an honor and a privilege. Thanks for having me as your first guest.
No problem. Thank you all for listening. And this is the first episode, and we will see you back soon for another Dirty D.O podcast.